Thank each one of you. At this time, our format calls for questions from our board members. If you have a question for any party that's been present today, you may ask a question. We'd like to limit this to a couple minutes per question and answer. But I'm going to start over here with Mr. Brian Carter.
First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for their input into this meeting that we're having here this afternoon. My question is, Mr. Lee, first question. Absolutely, those trails are, do we know whether or not those trails are safe with the biosolids?
I depend upon the experts at TDAC. I don't have the expertise, nor does anybody in this room have the expertise. There are people who are well-read on it overall, but if they tell us that they have passed the inspection, that it's safe, it's an approved, acceptable method of using the biosolids, then I think they're safe. But there is a mixed use there. That's the problem. When actually TDAC came down to inspect it, they had never seen the trails on there. It never has been actually in their information. So the mixed use is causing the problems.
Can I say something about it?
Go right ahead.
What Mr. Lee said about mixed use, again, TDAC stands like that, they're still going to have to get fence built. Okay, that's a given. They're asking me today, why hasn't the fence been built? And it's still the fence is going to have to be maintained. Again, it was about the city or friends of the trail. You know, the whole mixed use thing, along with the lots all going to get carried across the field, period, but, and again, the fence will have to be built. The trails aren't dangerous. You always got to get that part. They're not. No one's getting hurt by the trails. No one's on the staff. It's on the middle. You know it's dangerous.
I want to ask Linda Summerrock if she has any questions at this time.
I was going to go around and answer comments later on.
Yes, I am.
Okay. At this time, I don't have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Michelle?
I guess either one of you that can answer this, were there permits required for the construction? And if so, were any of those permits
The permits
obtained?
for construction of the trail? No permits. The permit that I did not get, and again, after I talked to it with the ARAP for the bridge, but again, after talking with TDAC, it's not that big a deal. It's not over 20 feet. Over 20 feet for the bridge has to have a permit. And again, that was the only one. The other bridges aren't over a water source. The one permit, or two permits that Fable Public Utilities didn't get when they went and cleared the wetlands with the dozer, actually Mike Dozer drove the dozer, they didn't get an industrial permit to clear the 10 acres. Right, Mike?
I was not driving those.
I got Mike.
Permit is not required.
Well, anyway, dozer was on video, and they didn't get an ARAP permit to clear that. So here's two things that if you just went in there and did, and I couldn't fathom, you know, when you clear it, and when PDET came down and they had the 17 recommendations, what did they say? Did you all read it? It was in the paper. It said, I hope you had an industrial permit for that land that you cleared. 10 acres. No silt fencing, nothing to stop sediment from running to the Delaware River. And that in itself is going to cost the city money because again, you can't go and clear 10 acres of land. You can't clear 1/10 of an acre of wetland. Again, maybe that was Mike on the dozer, but sure.
How about any evidence of toxins? I mean, I know they're saying there's nothing. Okay.
Right.
Okay, so as far as our softball fields and everything, there's no danger to those, correct?
Not at all.
Okay. That's my only questions. Thank you.
I'll move to Mr. Young. Do you have any questions for anyone?
Someone may explain this, and I just didn't understand. But is there another alternative for the biosolids other than just shredding some grown field? What other alternatives?
There are other alternatives, and again, that's the neat thing about biosolids. We're doing the minimum where we could actually do some investment and actually turn it into Class A. If we turn it into Class A, we wouldn't be able to keep it in storage. Class A is what you buy at Lowe's and Home Depot. It's like dirt, they call it the other crazy name, but what we do with it is we do the minimum, and then we go and spread it. And again, to turn it into Class A, they actually have to dry it more. and reduce the pathogens. Right now, there are still pathogens in the biosolids. They're not, below 95%, I believe that's the correct term, but, they're looking into that. FPU is actually looking into other changes. That's the real sad thing about this, that here FPU is looking to improve their biosolids, but we're also looking at closing the trails. It seems like we ought to do both, keep the trails and improve the biosolids.
Let me just add on to what Kevin said. I think FPU is looking at other areas, looking at other farms. They mentioned dewatering. All these cost more dollars. It certainly is most efficient, and the most efficient way right now is to use the land that we already have, which is 120 acres. And that would allow us to actually continue where we are. And it's been ruled that it's acceptable and a practice that can be used. And we could move forward with that and maybe continue looking at other options. But we're going to have to do something in the near future here.
One thing Mr. Lee didn't say too, this is real important, you cannot apply biosolids during the winter months. November, December, January, February, March, April. Why? Because the ground is saturated. Because the plants that absorb the toxins are there. Anybody seen any grass growing in it? And it's not a fescue field. They can't say all of a sudden it's fescue because we've been saying that we're enhancing the native grasses. So they're all dormant. And those are the same native grasses that have soaked up the toxins right now. And when it floods, they'll be carried all the way over to the ball fields. But to say that, we need to hurry up, FQ cannot dump in the winter months. Why? You cannot apply to frozen ground. You cannot apply to saturated ground. You honestly can't apply to a floodplain. And again, I'll show all of you where it says that. And we all know, if you don't know, December, January, February, those are our rain months. It's coming.
Thanks. Jane?
I think I was wanting to know about when floods, and I've seen it up to the top of the concession stands. And
Oh, know what your husband said, Jackie. That's my favorite one. Biosolids all over the park.
so that, that was my question.
Okay. Thank you.
Let me make sure I understand, Mr. Lee. There's no documentation from the state, safe or unsafe.
No document that's unsafe.
The mixed uses.
Yes. The mixed uses,
Documentation that's safe.
the mixed uses is causing a problem with the idea of having the trails on the biosolid. So they're going to require a buffer zone between it, some way that you cannot cross into the biosolid field. They're going to say it has to be fenced. It could be a deep ravine or ditch. But all they're requiring is having some kind of buffer as well as some kind of restraint. It can't be a single wire across there. That's what they're having.
But they're saying it's safe.
From what we've heard from the actual TDEC report, yes.
Mr. Freeman, you're saying it's not safe.
The biosolids, I can show you the past 12 quarters. And again, Mr. Rose is one more than me because he actually works with it. I was showing you what they have to report. It's not about it to you. But they can have to be under compliant, like Goodman has had problems with nickel in their sewer. Why do I know this? Because I read the documents. The thing about FG, they actually police Goodman and they police Copperville. And for them to, if they have a hiccup, they have an overflow, all they gotta do is call the state and say, hey, we just had 105 overflow down the street. Nothing happens. What really does happen is our kids get sick. Okay? That's the real shame behind this because, when I speak down the road and I'm drunk and I run your children over, I get put in jail. It doesn't work that way for municipalities. All they do is self-report. And I can show you documents right now that show you birth. 12 quarters. 12 quarters. We've had E. coli, 3 other problems that are in our sewage. Where does that end up? That's what I'm going. So if we got this problem, is it going into the river or is it going into the biosolids? I don't know. I don't work for it. And again, I don't know that Mr. Rozier knows, but I just know what the documents say. And I handed those documents to Mr. Paul Richardson yesterday to inform him because he was telling me stuff like ice cream. I said, are you nuts? And then when he read it, he goes, oh my God. So why are they not?
So the answer to the question was it's not safe.
It's not safe.
Okay. So why do we want to open them?
Open trails?
Yeah, on that side.
Huh? Why do we want to open the trails? The trails are a problem. Okay? And again, it's not, the trail's
If
supposed
it's going to drain off on those, all the way over to the fields, is it not going to get the trails? too. I understand what you're saying,
Yeah,
but I guess I'm hearing conflicting things. We want to open them, it's unsafe, but we want to open them.
well,
But if we don't open them, there's going to be a problem on the other side. Give
the
them
thing
that.
about biosolids, and Mr. Lee told me this last month, because he said, you know, Kevin, if we stop biosolids, we may not use the property for 3 years. We found out we actually use the property 30 days. And then the property actually has like, property that sits still for 30 days, put cattle on it. You can't just go put biosolids on it.
Let me, I'm gonna make it simple. I got $2, and if it's that unsafe, I don't want my $2.
You don't want your $2 on the ball fields or soccer fields or
So
anything.
why are we trying to open?
Because it has to be, because it has.
To me, the focus should be the city, I'm not sure, I guess we need to determine what this board needs to do. But the focus should be FPU and other sludge fields.
Right, they have found a few other sites.
So I agree with that. But in the meantime, that's something that's probably not gonna happen quick. So I'm not understanding why we wanna put our kids out here and what we're saying is dangerous.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen quick if we don't put fire. But also you need to understand is the conversation with TDEC, they won't be permitted to use the property. Okay, they won't be permitted to use the property. And again, if they were permitted, they would have to build a fence to still keep people back. Are you gonna close the river? If people can close the river, or could have got access from, I stopped the group from walking across the property this summer when they were on the 4th of July float. They were gonna walk back to town, so you can't walk across that field. Now again, you wanna go get some tests right now of the biosolids, I'll tell you what I know, what I've read. It is hazardous, hazardous, hazardous. The trails are there, the biosolid application stops. We have tests done. I'm not gonna encourage another bike race out there if they apply. I mean, that makes sense. Kevin, why would you encourage people? I cannot encourage people anymore to go in that whole parking lot, in that property. They haven't applied that for 40 days. They should have applied November 9th. I've been watching their site. Okay? Again.
I had 2 questions.
Thank you for that.
You answered yours.
I have maybe a couple of questions. Mr. Lee, is the land currently leased to FPU?
Yes.
Do you have written documentation that the land is safe and can continue to be used as sludge field?
I don't have it, but FPU has been given verbal, and I assume they're gonna have written documents coming in pretty soon. It's been safe for the action before it came down to the FPU board. I've not been reported any kind of sickness, I don't have any disease, you can't say flu is caused by it, you can't say anything. There's nothing been reported to the city of any sickness coming from it.
Kevin, do you have any written documentation from any governing agency that says that this land is toxic and hazardous at this time?
Well, I haven't seen the soil test. All I have is documents saying that TX had never said close to trails. I have that document. I have a document stating that FPU has to reapply for the permit. That permit entails, you know,
Monty, I did not hear this response.
Okay, I'm sorry.
2 documents that I have. One of them is the document from Ryan Owens stating that TDEC never said close the trail. It said for FPU, July 22nd, to build a barrier, buffer, and sign it. Those are the 3 things that TDEC said do immediately, 4 months ago. When I talked to Chris Moran today, he said, why haven't they done this? I said, I don't know. He said, well, they got to build a fence. I said, trails or no trails, they got to build a fence. And I said, I understand that. I said, but you know, you all closing the trails and FPU not being permitted again, then where are we? Because again, are you gonna call me up 4 months from now, so, well, you know, they didn't get a permit, Kevin, you'll come back and work on the trails? That may happen. I would hate to see that happen. I think you all should wait and see if FPU gets a permit. Because the fact that FPU getting a permit, this is what happens when you get permitted. I don't do anything with the trails anymore. I'm not gonna, I have knowledge now, knowing how unsafe this stuff is, I won't go in the park anymore.
Kevin,
But
you
you
want to say something, please?
don't have any written documentation.
I don't think I do.